The word salary comes from the Latin word for salt, not metaphorically, literally. Roman soldiers were partially paid in salt, a substance so valuable at the time that it was used as currency across empires. And here's what nobody tells you. The logic behind that payment hasn't changed in 2,000 years. You are still being paid just enough to come back tomorrow. Think about the last time you got a raise. It felt good. Maybe for a week, maybe for a month. Then your expenses adjusted. Your lifestyle shifted up slightly. And somehow, the raise disappeared into the same equation it always was. You needed more. You worked more. The cycle continued. This is not an accident. The modern salary system was not designed by accident, by economists, or by markets. It was designed deliberately by a small group of industrialists in the 1880s who had a very specific problem. Their workers kept quitting, and what they built to solve that problem is still running today, inside your paycheck every 2 weeks, without you ever noticing it. Before factories, most workers were paid by the piece. You made 10 shoes, you got paid for 10 shoes. You made 20, you got paid for 20. It was simple. It was direct, and it gave workers control over their time. If you needed money, you worked. If you had enough, you stopped. That was a massive problem for factory owners. Because machines don't work that way. A production line needs humans to show up at exactly the same time, every day, for exactly the same number of hours, predictably, reliably, forever. So, factory owners in the United States and Britain started experimenting with something new, a fixed weekly wage, not tied to what you produced, tied to the time you showed up. The genius, or the trap depending on how you look at it, was this. A weekly wage made workers think in weeks, not in days. If you were paid daily, missing one day hurt you once. If you were paid weekly, missing one day could cost you the entire week's pay, depending on the contract. Workers started showing up every single day, not because they wanted to, because the math punished them if they didn't. But what nobody realized at the time was that this was just the first layer of the design. Because there is a second problem the industrialists hadn't solved yet. By the early 1900s, factories were producing more than people could buy. Productivity had exploded, but workers were still living like they always had, spending only on necessities, saving the rest, working only as much as they needed. This was called the backward bending labor supply curve by economists. What it meant in plain language: give workers more money, and they might work less. Not more. That was terrifying to manufacturers. So they brought in a new kind of consultant. Not an engineer, not an economist, an advertising man. His name was Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And his idea was radical. He said, don't try to make workers need more money, make them need more things. If you can make people want things they never wanted before, cars, radios, fashionable clothes, bigger homes, then a salary is no longer just a payment. It becomes a leash, because now you need it, not to survive, to maintain the life you've been convinced you're supposed to have. Between 1920 and 1929, consumer debt in the United States tripled. People were spending money they hadn't earned yet on things they had been told they needed, and they had to keep working to pay for it. But even that wasn't enough, because there is a third problem, the most brilliant piece of the puzzle. And almost nobody talks about it. Most salaries are paid every 2 weeks, not every week, not every day, every 2 weeks. Ask your employer why, and most of them will say, administrative convenience. Processing takes time. That's just how payroll works. That's not the real reason. The 2-week pay cycle was standardized during the New Deal era. in the 1930s as a system that balanced employer cash flow with worker compliance. Here's what it actually does to your brain. When you get paid every day, you can decide every day whether the trade is worth it. When you get paid every 2 weeks, you've already spent the time. By the time the money arrives, the work is sunk. It's done. The only thing to do now is wait for the number to hit your account. And then this is the elegant part. Most of that money is already spoken for before you even see it. Rent, car payment, subscriptions, loan minimums, all set to auto draft. You get a salary. It passes through your hands for approximately 48 hours. And then it's gone. You're already working for the next one. Now add one more layer, one that was never accidental, one that was specifically designed into the system in 1913. Before 1913, there was no federal income tax in the United States. Workers received the full amount they earned. They paid taxes separately once a year as a lump sum. When the modern income tax was introduced, workers initially paid it the same way, annually in one payment. Then something changed in 1943. The current Tax Payment Act made employers responsible for withholding taxes before the worker ever received a dollar. The stated reason was practical. The government needed money faster to fund World War II. The real effect was permanent. Before withholding, workers saw exactly how much the government took. They wrote a check. They felt it. After withholding, workers never saw that money at all. It was extracted before the paycheck existed. Milton Friedman, one of the most influential economists of the 20th century, helped design the withholding system while working for the Treasury Department. He later called it one of his greatest regrets because what it created was a workforce that doesn't experience its full earning power, ever. You don't earn $5,000 a month and pay $1,200 in taxes. You earn $3,800 a month. The other $1,200 doesn't feel real. And now here's the final piece. The one that will actually change how you read your next paycheck. In 1890, the average American worker spent approximately 70% of their income on food, housing, and basic clothing. In 2024, the average American spends approximately 70% of their income on housing, transportation, insurance, and debt payments. The categories changed. The percentage didn't. For 130 years, across every technological revolution, every productivity explosion, every doubling and tripling of GDP, workers have reliably spent exactly what they earn and reliably needed to come back the next day to earn more. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed. The salt has changed shape. The logic never did. You were not taught this in school. You were not supposed to be. A system this effective doesn't advertise itself. The question isn't whether this is happening. The numbers make that clear. The question is what you do once you see it, because once you understand that your salary was designed to be just enough, you can start asking what enough actually means for you, not for the factory, not for the production line, for you. Leave a comment below. What was the first moment you realized your paycheck didn't feel like yours?